Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Golden Hour. My name is Matt Tullos.
And I'm Beth Moore.
Hey, Beth, it's great to see you. I was just looking last week at our schedule and our YouTube page, realizing that this episode is our 50th episode of It's the
Wow.
Incredible.
That's exciting. Yeah.
That-
Wow.
Some great conversations where we've talked about mental health. We have talked about missions. We've talked about pastoring. Uh, just so many different things, so many different highlights.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible to think about. I love that we've been doing this and we have more stories to tell from
Yes,
Tennessee
we
Baptist.
do. So tell us who we're going to have join us on this 50th episode anniversary, I guess you would say.
Well, I think this will be a great one. It's Chad Ramsey from First Baptist Smithville. And Chad, they just have a great mission strategy, considering that they're not a huge mega church. They're in Smithville, Tennessee, but Chad has a heart to lead them to be an Acts 1:8 church. So I think it's a great 50th episode.
That's great. Well, let's welcome them on board.
Great to be here. Great to be here.
Well, I would love for us to just start today. Tell us a little bit, just your story, your call to ministry, and how you ended up in Smithville, Tennessee.
Yeah, so we grew up in my wife and I grew up from Knoxville area. Grew up going to Wallace Memorial Baptist Church in Knoxville, and so learned a lot about missions even from a young age, and got into ministry after God called us there. My wife, she's a local teacher and always has been doing that. And we got into back to Tennessee about a little over 10 years ago, about 12 or so years ago. Worked a little bit outside of Knoxville in Blount County. And then about 9 years ago, God called us up here to Smithville, Tennessee, just trying to, with a passion to do missions and evangelism and really just reach out. And as we walked in the church, it was a smaller church. I'll be honest with you. I'm growing up in East Tennessee, and they said, "Hey, we're in Smithville, Tennessee." I said, "That's great." And I had to say, "Where's Smithville, Tennessee?" But it was wonderful church, wonderful people, good people. At the time, the church was running roughly around 125. They had times where they've gone up to 200 and they went waffled back and forth here and there. But it was just a good church. Been around for, we've been around for like over almost 180 years now. So I think our church was established 1 year before the Southern Baptist Convention was even established. So we've been around. Haven't been here that entire time, but in the last 9 years, though, God has just done an amazing work, and really give God all the credit. And I really believe a lot of that has to do with the mission effort that the church has done here in our community, in our state, and abroad. Also, it's just how that attitude of when they did the missions and missions were happening, how they also just incorporated that just into the community and accepting people. So, but we have a strategy that we do.
Tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
kind of what you're doing locally, all the different areas, the kind of Acts 1:8 strategy.
Yeah, exactly. So, went to finish my DMin, and my project was on making a multi-generational mission strategy for our church, and that was just an awesome experience to do that. And being able to implement that has just been even better. When you look at our church, we are a multi-generational church. We got a great children's program, youth program, all the way up to our senior adults. And we wanted to make sure that no matter who you are, what you are, where you are in life, you can get plugged into missions. And so it's a 3-tier approach, very much from a college aspect, like a 101, missions 201, and missions 301. The last one we do call mission PhD, but that's for full-time missionaries. And like we've had some people from our in our area, in our church area, that we've helped go to as a work with IMB and such. But for the most part, we always focus right here first in our Jerusalem. That's a 101. In our 101 missions, it's very simple. No experience required, no training required. Show up. We call them community days. We do at least 4 community days a year, one per season. We've done in the spring, we do oil changes for senior adults and single moms. We've done stuff like medical ministries here. We've also done some stuff where it's even something simple as a free yard sale. Like when people come, they want to give money. No, it's free, but allows us to have conversations with them. We've gotten plugged into a school supply program. We've sort of picked that up. So in the summer, we do a community day where we host and help run. All the kids can come from our community for school supplies, and so it allows us to. It's not just us on that part. We work with our community on that part, but it allows us to present in our church how to get plugged in, where they can come on our Wednesday nights and other ministry programs they do. And then in the fall, we really kick it off with two separate things. One is a community day where we bring in food. We give out food baskets for the holidays, and just people come, and as they're doing that, we take them to their car. We don't just say, "Here's your food, go." We don't check IDs or anything like that. We say, "Hey, we don't care how much time you can come through as many times you want, but we take you out to your car." And I tell you that the most beautiful thing is to see our people out in the parking lot just before they leave, saying the reason we do this because we love Jesus and Jesus loves you. And it allows us to have gospel conversations, allows us to have times of prayer with them. And we say you got to at least pray with every person you walk through, but we walk them through the line. We don't just say go through the line, so that we get to develop a relationship with that person. Might be short, but we get to do that. That's in the fall in the community. We also go on the Christmas, and like you said, we do the backpack program. And we changed it up. I remember when they started the backpack program, and this was all pre-COVID. It was like throw everybody in a room and just do all this stuff. Like, that's great, let's do it. And so we did our bags, and we also got bags from the convention and NAM and the partnership that we have with all of that. And what happened was we began to realize, like, hey, we want to have some more in-depth conversations. So then we started a thing where we actually bring the groups in. They go and they have like a event. Like this year, they made ornaments. They made Christmas decorations and stuff like that. And once they got through that, we would take them at 4 or 5 at a time into these rooms and present the gospel story, the Christmas story to them, so they can actually hear the gospel. Those are like quarterly things. On a monthly thing, we also help run our Hope Center, which is our local benevolence center. That is something where we show up. Everybody who walks through those doors is gonna, if this is their first time, they're gonna hear the gospel. And we pray with them. We share about, hey, it doesn't matter how you answer, what you say. We're going to help you because Jesus loves you and we love you. And so we're one of 4 churches in our community that does that. But I was talking to the director over there. I think they've already, just in January, they've already had over 20 people come to the Lord in salvation. So just God's working in amazing ways in that ministry. Our church was instrumental in getting started with that.
Is that an associational ministry? Excuse me.
It is.
Right.
It is. It started out as a local ministry in the area, and they approached our church, and then we took it over, and we said, hey, this is great the way it is, but we saw how big of an impact it could make if we could just expand this out to the association level. And so we have 34 churches in our association, but in that, we also have probably about mostly the Smithville churches and other churches in our association really come together to help make that possible, help fund it. Like I said, there's about 4 churches that really, on a month-to-month basis, have a week that volunteer out there to get the gospel out. So that's a 101. But it's not just 101 here. We also do some 101 stuff abroad. We work with Charm Ministries over in Townsend, Tennessee. We've been doing that for the past 5-6 years now. Great way. We call that a full family mission trip. You can take your whole family. You do the Bible camp in the morning, and then we go to mission projects during the day in that area. And at night, we have like a family fun night, which we're able to do a gospel presentation at the end. And one of our favorite parts is like we always do like s'mores over the campfire at the end. And we say that's our time to get to know people. That's our time to have gospel conversations. We've had rededications. We've had all kinds of stuff. Just people come to know Jesus over chocolate and marshmallows and s'mores, So it's just awesome to see that. But and you guys know with missions and what it's done, and that's all more like 101. But all of those, like they start to get that bug. You know what I mean? They start to get that, hey, I like this. I feel like I see God doing something, and that leads us into like the 201. So we work with our state. We also work with NAM to try to do stuff that is just within our area. And the big reason we do that is because like this keeps us from having to like background check this and background check that. We know that they stand on the Baptist faith and message. We know where they believe. And so we work in Colorado with the BCM and at Colorado Springs with our Air Force Academy students. We've been going there probably about 5 years, 6 years or so. We go out there and help out at the local BCM. We just finished a partnership in Boston, and that was a really great time because it allowed us to have a time to work with a church plant in just outside of Boston area. And that church had like 10. Now they run like 60, 70 on a given Sunday. And we're like, hey, you're doing it. We're going to go help another church who has like 5 or 10 that we can go help them. So we just started a new partnership in Detroit, working with the group up in Detroit with NAM and a church plant. But that's also like the reason it's 201 is like because we know, hey, you're going to a different environment, even a different culture, like a post-Christian mindset that's up there. And that helped develop all of those things just so that we're going here and abroad. As we get up there, we've been able to see a lot of things, especially Detroit. It really feeds into some things that we're doing overseas because one of the areas up there, there's a large Muslim population. So that's one aspect of our Detroit trip that we do. So that leads into maybe like a 301 trip, which is we have a partnership in Germany. We were over in Germany in the Cologne area even before the state start. Actually, it's when the state was about to start its partnership with Germany before COVID. And we were about to start that, and we were all on board to go on the vision trip and everything. We finished with COVID and found out those missionaries were no longer in that area, but for some reason, it just never left our heart, and we wanted to continue to look at that. And we were able to connect and actually had some friends with IMB, and it was more of a God thing that now we've been going over there for, I think we've done about 5 trips over the last 3 years up to or over to Cologne in Germany. And just what a wonderful partnership working directly with a church plant that's with our IMB missionaries and also refugees and people from Turkish people and all kinds of people from the Middle East who come that way. It's eye-opening because you're in Germany, but most of our ministry is with Muslims and other people from other denominations. But we do that on a 301 because that you can't do a 301 unless you've done a 201. And that has helped develop a strategy so that people understand, like, you can't just go over here to Germany and just start on a street corner and get a bullhorn and just start going to town. Like, you got to make sure, like,
It's not an effective strategy.
no. I'm not saying you can't do that here. I'm not saying the people who do that are bad, but over there, it's like it's a different culture. It's a different mindset. So we want to make sure that when we go somewhere, we're not destroying the relationships and the work that those ministries and missionaries have done. So we go there and we usually tell them, I mean, we try not to go over there and say, this is what we're going to do. We try to go over there and say, what do you need us to do? And we ask that question many, many months, sometimes a year in advance, and say, hey, we can start working to learn how to do something if we need to, training on that. But we talk about how to have conversations. But all of that builds back into the church. And I think that's where we've seen so much stuff with our church grow. We've tried to remove all the roadblocks. So like, one key area that this is going to sound interesting is like we just did a mission trip to work with the bivocational pastors, which was like a 2-day trip, right? Yeah. And what was so great about it is like, hey, we're here. And I was telling our church members, this isn't like, most everybody there is going to be saved because they're a minister. So we're there to support them, encourage them. We also do that same ministry in Tazewell, Tennessee. And we've also gone even down the Copper Basin Those are some 201s. So again, there's a 101 that leads into 201 and 201 into 301. We realized, hey, what's the needs
A
out
little
there?
bit.
Yeah.
Tell a little bit about what you did at the Bavo and what you do in Tazewell and
Yeah.
Copper Basin.
So we had, and this is, and I would encourage any church can do this. Like you don't, the danger is saying, hey, this church is doing this, so let's just copy what they're doing. You got to look at your congregation and say, who's in your congregation? What God has gifted them to do, and go from there. And then when God does something, you just grab on and hold on and ride it out. That's been our biggest thing. We had 3 or 4 doctors who started, we got to know in the community, and some were coming to our church. We had nurse practitioners and nurses that they just worked. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're saying, hey, let's go, love to do a mission trip in medical missions. Like, okay. And then one person said it, and another person said it, and another person said it. And before I know it, it's like, maybe God's doing something here. And so you look at those God moments and you say, look, what can we do? And so we went to Tazewell last year, and we did a medical mission trip. And we had it was a small group of people who came, but we did the same thing. We did health screenings. We got to talk to all these people, share the gospel with them. We even took counselors. So if they wanted to talk about like mental issues, diabetes, all kinds of different things. And it's not about the medical. It's about getting the people there so that you can have the gospel conversation with them, so that you can get in, and that gets them there. But one of the things, even the bivocational, it was like, hey, this is something that could change your life. I mean, we had several people at the bivocational conference that were saying, hey, this is where you are. You might want to go home and see your regular doctor, because you need to get this really checked out. Because a lot of people, they just don't take that serious sometimes, and it can become a serious issue. But we care about the spiritual and the physical. But it's just a way to do it. And I think that's the biggest challenge that you have when you do that is finding, what do people need? Don't just say, we can do this, let's go do that. No, what do people need? And can we provide that need so that we can share the gospel? So that's part of what that is. And, we've taken that, we used some dental, so we had some dental people in our church.
Yeah.
And,
It's working with, I think it's important for people to know, you've mentioned Charm in Townsend, you've mentioned Copper Basin and the Ministry Center in Tazewell, New Tazewell. Those are all Tennessee, regional educational ministries. Those are all Tennessee Baptist ministry centers that other churches could partner with as well.
And it was fascinating to see there at the Bivo conference, how your people engaged with them. And several times I caught a glimpse of them praying with pastors, which was really cool. How, as a pastor, do you train your people to move from your basic service that you're giving, which is definitely what the New Testament calls us to do, into the conversation? Is that something that you train in a small group, or is it something that you just learn on the job and model that?
I think it's both. I think as we do the community days, it puts that attitude in the heart, that you begin to see people and for the people, and stop seeing things as, we're here to meet this need. We're here to meet this need. We're here for the people. And so you got to always let people understand, like, our job isn't to, we're not going to get to heaven. They're not going to look at you and say, like, how many people did you feed? How many people did you clothe? They're going to look at me, how many disciples did you make? But it starts by maybe giving them a blanket, maybe giving them some food, so that you can do that. And what it does is it puts something in their heart to see people and not just run away. I sort of call it the getting away from the grocery store mentality, where you're going down the grocery store aisle and you see somebody, but you got 5 minutes, so you like duck and turn and you go down the other aisle so you don't have to have that conversation. And it's like, we need to get back to where we know people need relationships. And so that is harvested and worked on in our 101s. But yes, there is a training. When we do our trainings, we keep it super simple. We do the 3 circles. I know there are millions of different ways to celebrate the gospel, but we buy the wristbands and we put them on our arms. We walk around and say, "Here's the gospel. Here's what we're here for." We say, if you want to use another gospel presentation, go for it. But we give them the gospel training, and we say, hey, at the end of the day, make sure they know why you're there, and you're there to pray for them, to love on them, and let them know how much Jesus loves them and cares about them. And that has changed the mentality of our church. I think the struggle becomes keeping a balance so that you have local, your Jerusalem, your Judea, and your here. They're all keeping that balance in there. Because you don't want to get so, foreign that you lose sight of your community, or so community that you never think about what's foreign. Because and you both know, you go overseas, your eyes are opened quickly, that sin is real, that other countries do not see the gospel the same way, especially here. I know we're still called the Bible Belt, but it's different. It's just different. So, I know every time I go overseas and I do a mission trip, my heart for evangelism is just exploding. And it's not because, oh, look what I did in my heart. It's like, it's almost a burden. Of seeing those people in the need, it's like, I got to get back at it. I got to, and you see that in people. And that's what I love about missions. And that's why I'll always say this. I've seen more people go on a mission trip and come back on fire for God and do more locally because they went somewhere. And they see that, and it allows them to get that training, and they realize, like, if I could do that there, I can definitely do that right here. But the training helps them in that.
So, Chad, just as you talk about this strategy, your 101, 201, 301, you must have a great missions pastor or staff that's leading this in your church, right?
We have a director, and we've gone through, like one guy, he was doing it, and David was doing a great job helping us out. And now we got a couple, they're the Bells, Jim, and that's the other thing. Like, the pastor can't go everywhere. They're completely volunteer, yes. So, but when you and I would say this, like if a church said, how do you do this? Like, you got to talk about missions over and over and over. They need to know what Lottie Moon is. They need to know what Annie Armstrong is. They need to know what the Gold State is. They need to know, where your cooperative dollars are going, that even if we aren't doing this or this, it's still being used across the state and other mission activities. And you just keep talking about missions over and over, that is our mission, to make disciples. I always tell our church, we're not called to stay and wait. We're called to go and make. And that's a big thing that we push and push and push for people to do. Find your mission. And the Bells have come along, and they just said, hey, we got a passion for this. And and that came after prayer, just asking God, hey, who can be this? Because I can't lead all these trips. I know we don't have staff to do all of this. And because you hear even like larger churches, like they might have a staff position that does this. We don't. It's all volunteer. And then when somebody has a passion, and this is I think very important. Somebody has a passion, or when I do go on a trip, I'm not looking to and thinking about the next trip that I'm going to go. I'm looking at like who here has a passion for this ministry. So when I get back, I can say, hey, while we're here, you be looking at how would you lead this trip next time? How would you do this? And so that's gotten us to the point to we're basically doing, whether it's local or abroad, we're doing a mission activity or trip once a month pretty much now. And I maybe go to like 3 or 4 of those because we have other people in the church who have started that. And that's taken years building this up. Because, I went to, like we talked about Colorado a second ago. I went to Colorado. I've been once. I'd love to go back, but I'm like every other family. I got 2 kids, a kid out to graduate high school, and a middle school daughter going on 33, and all these things that we're trying to do and work, and you got family and other things here with the church, so you can't go on everything. So, and that's the church's job to equip the saints so they can find, hey, this is my mission. And sometimes that's right here, local, and sometimes that's all the way wherever that might be. So, yeah.
So one of the things, I mean, I really wanted you to be on the podcast because I do want other churches that are just average size churches, or even you said you started out when it was about 125 people, that it's possible to have a really strong mission strategy no matter what size you are. What would you say to the pastor who is feeling burdened or maybe just starting out at a church that wants to grow their missions emphasis? What would you say to them?
Do something. Start somewhere. Definitely start local, and make that an emphasis in your church, and just be present as you're doing it. I mean, and it's not. There's a danger, I think, if to say, "Hey, we're going to do this," but as a pastor, if you're there working side by side with them, that makes a huge difference. And they know that you're there. They know that you care about this. I mean, missions is not something that we should, that we might do. It's something we're supposed to do. And if everybody has a mission. So I think in the church, no matter how big you are, it can grow to something bigger. But even like in our case, like we started out with like 4 trips a year. Um, and actually, to be honest, it's probably like 2 trips a year with 4 community days. And it takes longer and it's harder for those community days because there's a lot more work, a lot more supplies, a lot more time invested in those. Um, it's really easier to go do a mission trip and go somewhere than it is to do something sometimes locally that's on a larger scale. But just start somewhere and get going and doing it, showing that it's important. And what it does is it shows the community that you care. So, and I think this is huge for church growth.
Mm.
And this is what's helped our church grow. Like I said, we've gone from 125 to we average about 325, 350 now. And a lot of people who are in our church they came maybe not because they were involved in that ministry, maybe they weren't involved in that local mission project that happened, but they knew that they began to see what our church was doing, and they began to realize that this church cares, and this church has a heart for people. And they once they get in, it's like it's not this church. God has a heart for them. God cares about them, and then the gospel takes hold and does what it does. But the beauty of it is like we just started somewhere, and then you just let God work. And sometimes as a pastor, you got to step back and say, "Hey, you can do this, or you can do this," and give them resources that they need. But it's just having that mentality that this is important. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It can be time consuming to set some of these things up. It can be hard, but you've got to step back and say, it's worth it. It's worth it. I mean, uh, and maybe this is bad to say as a pastor, but I don't know how many sermons my church members will ever remember. But they're going to remember that hug. They're going to remember that prayer when prayed with them. They're going to remember that time we talked to them. And that's what really is going to make a big difference. And not that we should ever put, not emphasis on the sermon and preaching. That's very, very there. But, we've been called to serve and to go and make. And you can't put one over the other. You got to be doing both. And if that means if that's not you as a pastor, then somebody's in your church would love to go do a service project, and it might just be serving somebody in your church, and then it expands from there. But start somewhere. Just do something, and I emphasize do. Giving is great, but don't make the mistake that you're doing something just by giving. You got to give. We need to give. We need to support. We need to financially support our missionaries, not just financially, but also go alongside of them and help them. But don't, I heard someone say one time, like, we leave the missions to the professionals. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no.
No.
The missions is everybody's been called to go on mission. So we need to make sure it's not just giving, it's also doing something. And it gets us off his feet. It gets the church active and doing what it's supposed to be. So
Um, it seems like because you're doing so many mission trips and projects and things like that, I'm sure that your people have stories. that they could tell about these experiences. Are there some ways that you're able to communicate those stories to the overall congregation that would lead to more excitement?
Yeah, um, that's been hard, but awesome in the same time. So what we've done lately, and this has worked out the best for us, like, we, I mean, don't throw stones at me, but we don't have a Sunday night service anymore. So, um, but and a lot of that's because like we turned that in, we've stopped doing Sunday nights in the sense of a regular service, and we've turned that into discipleship training. So we've gone like really old school. And so when we do have Sunday night stuff, it's like, here's how to present your faith. Here's how to give your testimony. Here's how to know what, that's where mission trip training is as well too. So a lot of things along those lines happen on our Sunday nights when we have those classes. With that being the case, we used to say, hey, come on a Sunday night, this mission team's going to come and give a mission report. And we'd be so excited and all these people, but people just didn't want to get back out. And that didn't matter how many people we had come to church. They just weren't coming back out. So what we started doing, and this was this last year, we had one of my the old deacons, who's a deacon emeritus, came to me and said, hey, why don't we start doing this on like during the service on Sunday morning? I was like, that is a great idea. So we have a prayer time in the middle of our service every Sunday where we just focus on our relationship with God and getting our heart ready for worship. And so what we started doing is like, we have people come up who went on that trip. We put them right there on stage a week or two after the trip. They share a story, a short story. It's a very Q&A type, like sort of like this. And we do Q&A. And then the last question that we asked him is like, hey, based off what you experienced when you were there, what is one thing that we need to be praying for the people of this area? Like for one of our last trips we did that was for Copper Basin. How can we be praying for Copper Basin right now?
I love that strategy too, because really, you sometimes it's like a box of chocolates when it comes to testimonies. You don't exactly know what you're going to get, but have the control of in an interview process where you can kind of control uh, time length of testimony and how it goes and flows. So I think that's, as a pastor, I see that's a great strategy there.
Yeah, because like a lot of times, and speaking as a pastor, sometimes somebody gets up there, I'm enthralled by what they're saying. And as I look around the room, I'm like, a quarter of the people are enthralled, some are, some aren't. And this, you're able to semi-control what's being said. Because that's the thing, we want to offer different mission strategies, different mission opportunities. Some are going to be very exciting for some, but not exciting for the others because that's not where God's called them to do. And this allows them to just to hear it, but also like anybody can pray. Anybody can lift them up in the ministry that's going on there. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard a pastor say it's really the ministry of shepherding the mic in the worship service.
Yes. So, I didn't mention this. You asked this earlier, and I meant to say this too. One thing, and I've experienced this as a dad, as we do multi-generational, like taking our kids. We always say, if you have a child who wants to go, that's great. But we want you, if they're under 18, they need to have like a chaperone. But we don't just say, it's not just a blanket no. We want you to go and you can be a part of it. But what's interesting in seeing like all the trips, and especially as a dad and stuff, I used to always think, the summer's the best time to go on mission trips, or because we can get families to go and do this. And then we begin to realize that that's not the case. You only get about 2 months of the summertime, and most of that summertime has been filled months and months before the summer actually gets there. So what we began to realize was it's better to have, now this, again, you've got to look at your own congregation, your own church. But for our church, we have more trips, but a lot of them are like 2 days, 3 days, weekend trips. It's easier for people to take off a weekend and go somewhere. And we try to make it as cheap as possible. We've air mattressed it up, and we make options like, hey, when you go here, if you want to do an air mattress route, this is go here. The church is going to allow us to stay there. They got a shower. If you want a hotel, and we understand why, you can go over here and get a hotel. So we try to make it sure, like, it's not like you don't have to be pigeonholed. It has to be this way or it has to be that way. But the big thing that really got me was like, it's better to offer multiple mission opportunities that may be shorter. And that's why in the community days, we don't just do one, we do 4. So, because they might not be able to do this one. I mean, we live in an area where farming and nursery workers are all over the place in this area. So in the springtime, yeah, you're not seeing them, but they can do stuff in the fall. They can do stuff in the winter, and so we know that. So we have a whole crew that does this, and a whole nother crew that does this, and we just say, "Come one, come all," and find the ones that you can get plugged into.
Mm. I love that so much, Chad. I think so much of what we're trying to do now at TBMB with a new missions team is help and encourage our churches to be Acts 1:8 churches. And so I just thank you so much for sharing all of these different things, all these little tidbits of advice. And I hope that churches of whatever size will listen and pastors will listen and be encouraged to just, yeah, to go do something, to
Yeah.
give something else a try.
Well,
So,
and I'll end on this. I know, but almost every trip we have has had some connection either by us calling Beth or calling Joe Sora or, talking to other people. In the past, Randy's thrown some ideas our way. And that's what I love about our state convention is that, they're not someone sitting way over there who doesn't care. They'll pick up the phone, they'll answer to you. And you guys do a great job equipping, but it's not just there, but even when we go, when I go to the annual meeting, it's not so much for the meetings. It's just to say, hey, we're going to go to the IMB booth. We're going to go to the NAM booth. We're going to go to, and find out where we can connect and how we connect. And even then, when you start talking to people, that's what they're there for. And they love to do that. So the resources are all there. And I say that from this standpoint. You can stay in state. All the state stuff that we have has been us picking up the phone and calling the office in Franklin, it's amazing by how God has done that and how God continues to do that. And I encourage any church, like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, a lot of times it's all right, just plug into what's already going on and then let God go from there. So, we don't have a missions pastor, but we have volunteers. But we have people like you guys and other people who helped guide us so that we sort of have some idea of what we're doing. And then and the big word we always use is flexibility. Whenever you go into something, be super flexible because you never know what you're going to run into. But
So this is a question. So this is a question for you and for Beth. If I'm a pastor and I'm hearing all this stuff about getting your folks on mission, ready to go, who should I contact? How do I do this? And Chad, I want to get in contact with you, or I want to engage with you. And I know you're a busy pastor. Where would I start?
I'll let you start, Beth. Ladies first.
well, yeah, reach out to me, email me, bemore@tnbaptist.org, or give me a call. I have contacts for several of these places that Chad has mentioned in Tennessee, these association opportunities. And then we have other opportunities with DR, Arise and Build. So yeah, call me and we'll get you pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, it's great. I'd say we'd be glad to talk to anybody. I love talking about missions. I love talking about helping pastors find, what does your church like to do? What is your church, how's God blessed your church? What are some, one of the things that we did in our area was we took we looked at the census. We looked at a demographic report, which I believe you can still get that through the state convention as well, and see.
Yeah, Lewis, McMullen, and I could
Yeah.
with that.
So you look at that, and then we took that information and we said, okay, here's what the perceived needs are in our community, and here's what the real needs are in our community. And the other side of it is there's going to be some times you're going to do some missions and you're going to think this is going to go great. This is going to go awesome. And it bombs. I mean, bombs. But there's some other times that you do some mission stuff, and it's just like he's like, wow, look what God did. And it's just, it's amazing to see how it is. But, just, I think that's the beauty of collaboration, just talking with other people, where some opportunities are. I'm always open. If somebody wants to talk to me, they can give us a call. Um, our strategy, like I actually got a booklet that we use and we've passed it out several times. So if somebody wants to say, hey, here's this, and say, hey, how can I apply this to my local church? It's not hard. Just you put a team together in your church, and within 4 or 5 months of meeting about once a month with that team, you can nail it down and have a path to start, which I think is an amazing thing to do. So,
Matt, will you pray for Chad and First Baptist?
Absolutely. Uh, Father, we just thank you so much for Chad and his vision, all the way from uh, studying about multi-general mission strategy to actually putting boots on the ground, not only in Smithville, but in Colorado and in other places far, far away from that little nook of Tennessee. And so, Father, I pray that through this conversation, pastors and leaders, men and women, uh, the body of Christ will begin to get a fresh passion for missions, uh, both here in Tennessee and around the world. And Father, I just so resonate with what Chad said about it's not just about giving. You've called us to give, but you've also called us to pray, and you've called us to go. And I thank you for giving us these three opportunities, and I pray that we'll be faithful to that. In Christ's name, amen. Hey, thank you so much for praying with us. And thank you, Chad, for sharing your ministry. This is our 50th episode of the Tennessee Golden Hour. And we're just so thankful for you watching this. And hopefully you'll get some takeaways to use in your church. You could help us by liking or sharing this video on Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media platform. We want to get the word out, and we want to energize churches to do what Chad's church is doing in their local community and in the nation and around the world, which is to pray, to give, and of course, what we talked about today, to go.